everybody, wherever you are in the world, watching. This is NNOA, our weekly look at news, views, and historical perspective of the world's greatest organization, the National Naval Officers Association, with chapters throughout the United States and Okinawa, Japan. I am Commander Denise McCallaCreary, the immediate past president of the National Naval Officers Association. And it is my honor and privilege on this 23rd day of January to be sitting in this seat, the host of This is NNOA, normally Captain Roosevelt Wright Jr. is normally here, but today I have the privilege to have him on the other side of the camera being interviewed. Our president, Admiral Sinclair Harris, has declared this the year of the captains and colonels. And for those who don't know, it's captains in the Navy and the Coast Guard and colonels in the Marine Corps. And we're celebrating them this year. And of course, our host is one of those Navy captains. And I get the privilege to have him on the other side of the camera. Now, he's smiling big time. He is very special to us. He serves on the board, our board, as the historian. And let me tell you, history he knows. His mind is sharp. I cannot keep up with him. He's also a professor emeritus of the Syracuse University Newhouse School of Journalism. He's also the former talk show host on Power 620 AM of Old School Sunday. And I used to take great pleasure in listening to him because he would play those nice old school music of our era that I loved. And today, we're going to hear about him. He has spent the last few months since we started the show talking about others, interviewing others. But today is his day. And he's been around a long time. So we're going to have a hard time fitting his story in a short time, but we're going to try, aren't we, Captain Wright?
Oh, we're going to have a ball today.
I'm so happy to be here with you.
Oh, Commander Denise McCallaCreary, the immediate past president of the National Naval Officers Association. It is indeed a pleasure to be your guest on this week's edition of This is NNOA. Oh,
how does it feel to be my guest?
Oh, I feel
you're not doing the interview.
I feel fantastic being the interviewee. I've been looking forward for this all of my life, to be interviewed by you, Commander Denise McCallaCreary. Oh, I never forget the first time when I saw you at NNOA convention back in the 1980s. And when I saw you and all of those other great brothers and sisters of the United States Navy, United States Coast Guard, United States Marine Corps, I was in heaven. And
well, listen, wait. We want it to be about you today. So let's start talking about you. You're not going to get away with talking about lots of other people. We want to hear about you. We want to hear your history, your story. So let's start with you telling about us where you were born and where you grew up.
Well, to all of our great NNOA family members, everybody checking out the show today. In fact, you might know this part of the world. I was born in a wonderful city in northeastern North Carolina called Elizabeth City, North Carolina, home of the United States Coast Guard Air Station, and the Navy had a big air station, Naval Air Facility Wicksville. Of course, when I grew up, Denise, our country was faced with the era of segregation and racism and all. But of course, my family was a very good and very interesting family. In fact, Reuben Wright III, who's the executive producer of this big time show, his grandfather was an electrician who was an electrician for the US Navy during World War II. And his grandmother, Mrs. Lily Mae Wright, mom was one of those African-American ladies of that era who were basically domestics, working in the kitchens of, the rich white folk in early days of Elizabeth City, North Carolina. But in my case, I had a sister, Barbara Ann Wright. Barbara died about 20 years ago. She was 2 years younger than I. But basically, the city of Elizabeth City, North Carolina was a military city. Now, I'm trying to set the perspectives because all of the African-American sailors and Coast Guardsmen who were stationed at the Elizabeth City Coast Guard Air Station and the Naval Air Facility Weeksville, and also we're only 35 miles south of Norfolk, Virginia, which is the home of the Atlantic Fleet. So to give a slant to what was going on at that time, just about all of the African-American sailors were basically mess cooks and messmen in the United States Navy and the United States Coast Guard. And of course, being in an era of racial segregation, that is in the South, and I'm in northeastern North Carolina, Elizabeth City, when all the brothers left the base, you know, things in the city were basically closed to them. I mean, the movie theaters, the downtown, the restaurants. And so basically the African-American section of the city basically provided an air of solace and home cooked food, you know, like that stuff you got in Jamaica, that kind of stuff.
I know, you know, it's interesting that you mention about the segregation, because as you know, you're about to say it, I'm originally from Jamaica. And when I arrived here, I didn't even know the word racism. Moreover, the fact that you could have a place where a group of people lived and pretty much was ostracized from going to another area. And I remember even some of my friends after we came, they visited the South, and one of my very best friend happens to be half Chinese, and he was dating a woman of color. And he came back and told us how he was allowed to go in the front door and she had to go in the back door of the hotel where her mother worked. Of course, I knew I was never going to go to the South because that was just unacceptable. But go on with your story. Tell us about your mom and your grandmom.
So getting, you know, this whole thing in perspective, especially for the National Naval Officers Association. Now, out of this group of African-American sailors, though, became really my mentors and great teachers. These brothers were absolutely fantastic. And I'll give you some of their names. Petty Officer Lewis Chester Charles was a mess cook with the United States Navy. And then, of course, another great sailor named Danny Reginald Echoes, who was in the United States Navy. And he basically was really the first African-American enlisted sailor who had another rate. And this time, I'll get into that particular era. He became our Boy Scout troop leader at Boy Scout Troop 115 in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. But to give you a perspective, our homestead was at 703 South Road Street in Elizabeth City. And of course, that section of the town was really a very active area of African-American history and heritage. There were nightclubs there. Eventually, my father, of course, also worked for the Virginia Carolina Amusement Company, which owned all the movie theaters in northeastern North Carolina and a number of the movie theaters around Norfolk, Virginia, Chesapeake, and southeastern Virginia. And Dad became an electrician for the Virginia Carolina Amusement Company and a 35mm motion picture projectionist right after World War II, when he had left his role as an electrician at the Norfolk Naval Shipyard. So eventually what had happened, you know, by the way, in movie theaters, all of the African-American patrons of movie theaters had to sit in the balconies. There was a colored entrance, yes, on the side of the theater where basically all of our people had to go and sit up in the balcony near the projection booth to see movies. But in my hometown of Elizabeth City, North Carolina, the Virginia Carolina Amusement Company, which was headed up by Mr. J. Holland Webster and Mr. Levin Culpepper, who was a very wealthy families in Elizabeth City, they set up a theater, an all African-American movie theater. It was called the Gaiety Theater. And it was in that movie theater that my father was a motion picture projectionist and eventually became the general manager of the theater. Well, in that area of my hometown, there were also nightclubs like the Royal Peacock, the Blue Room. Oh, that was Mr. Dan.
Listen, tell me more about your mom. You mentioned your dad. What about your mom?
Oh, yes. Now, my mother, beautiful. In fact, oh my God, Ruben was taking some pictures. I should have brought the picture of Mom out so you could see what she looked like. But Mom was absolutely gorgeous. She and Dad met each other right after high school. And of course, the high school that my mother and father finished was the same high school that I finished, and my sister Barbara, P.W. Moore High School in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. So my mother she was a beautiful lady. She like you.
Well, listen, we know she's beautiful because we do have a picture of her mom.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, we do.
Oh,
But
wow.
keep telling your story, though.
Let's just keep talking here.
We have a picture of your mom.
Okay, so Mom was really a beauty, and Dad, and they met. So Dad, when he finished P.W. Moore High School in Elizabeth City, you know, opportunities for African-American males was very minimal. And World War II hasn't broken out yet. I'm talking the end of the 1930s. Dad loved the area of audiovisual communications and electronics. So he goes to Philadelphia, where we had a lot of African Americans migrated to the north. So we had a number of relatives who lived in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So Dad goes to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and while there, he was working at a hospital, a private hospital out in West Philly, it was called the Burn Bray Hospital. And Dad took me there a number of years later. But at the hospital, which was one of those private hospitals of that era, the daughter of the owner of the hospital was a professor at Temple University, all right, in Philadelphia. So she really liked my father for some reason or another, and she got him into the night school electricians program at Temple University. So Dad finishes the program at Temple University, and just before World War II, he comes back to Elizabeth City really to get my mother, and they want to get married, and he wanted her to come north to Philadelphia. My mother said, no, she's not leaving the South. And of course, she was probably about, what, 18 years old, didn't want to leave her family. So basically, she stayed there in Elizabeth City. Now, while Dad was there, my grandmother, who was Reuben's great-grandmother, was Mrs. Annie Wright Collins. She worked for a very wealthy attorney named Lawyer Leroy in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. Lawyer Leroy had heard that my father had gone north to Temple University and had studied to become an electrician. And he said, Annie, and my father's nickname was Buster. He said, Buster and Lily Mae, they're really getting that. He said, look, I want to try something. And what Lawyer Leroy had planned, he wanted to get my father an electrical contractor's license. So basically, the lawyer got all the paperwork, filled it all out. But what was not known that my father was an African-American. This is the state of North Carolina. So Dad he showed up, and they were absolutely shocked that he was an African-American to take the electrical contractor's exam. But Lawyer Leroy had already fixed up that he had to take the exam. So Dad took the exam, and then a few days or weeks later, he gets a response back that said he had failed the exam. A few days later, Lawyer Leroy went to my grandmother, Mrs. Annie Collins Wright, and said, Annie, your son Buster, he passed the test. The problem is that the state of North Carolina is not giving licenses to young, in fact, those days, colored boys, as they would use that word, in the state of North Carolina. So Dad basically was there. And what happened? World War II breaks out. And here's the horror story of this. My father and also Mom, they were just incredible, a couple and everything. Dad was an incredible electrician. The war breaks out, and that's when they expand the United States Coast Guard Air Station at Elizabeth City into a major air station. And the Navy builds a big naval air station called Naval Air Station Wicksville. The squadrons were blimp squadrons, ZP-1, ZP-4, ZP-14. And all these blimps are used to go for anti-submarine warfare patrols off the coast of Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Maryland, and all. And in fact,
so you have a very long history then in association with military bases where you were born. So I assume you went to high school there in Elizabeth City, or did you go to...
Well, the whole thing, Dad and Mom got married, and then I come along, and Dad basically gets a job in the Norfolk Naval Shipyard as an electrician. The sad thing, though, is that if Dad had had his electrical contractor's license, Dad could have gotten many of the many million-dollar awards that were being awarded to contractors to build the Naval Air Station at the Wicksville, Elizabeth City, North Carolina, and also the expansion of the Coast Guard Air Station, Elizabeth City. But in the end, Dad goes electrician for the Navy. And my mother, of course, she finished high school, and Mother was really smart, but she also was kind of shy, and I think for her family background also, and they have big other stories about that. She basically found herself, and many African-American females were basically domestics. They were, worked in family, the big rich white folks' family, the whole story of doing the cooking and the cleaning and raising their children. And that was my mother's whole background.
Right, and so she had you were the first child?
I was the first child.
You were the first child, and you mentioned a sister, so you have a sister?
I have a sister, Barbara.
And you went to school in Elizabeth, New Jersey? In
Elizabeth City, North Carolina.
And you graduated from high school there?
Yes. Well, You know, Commander,
Yes.
my father always told me something though, and in fact, he always told me when I was a little kid, he said, don't you ever forget this, but you were born on board the USS Shangri-La, the big aircraft carrier, Essex class aircraft carrier that was being built during the World War II at the
Really?
Norfolk shipyard. So
That
Dad
was
always said I
interesting.
was born on the USS Shangri-La, and as I got older in life, I keep wondering, did Dad and Mom,
Yes.
on board the
Right.
Shangri-La while the ship was being built in Norfolk? Well, that's the story he always told me. Well, anyhow, to get with the story real quick in my case, okay, I'm born in 1943. I'm an old guy, by the way. And of
Don't look
course,
it.
grew up in Elizabeth City.
Mhm.
Elizabeth City, North Carolina, of course, had a shipyard where they repaired Navy ships. Dad worked in Norfolk. Then I grew up in the theater business along with Dad. My love and really following Dad, I loved electronics, aviation, airplanes, photography, and I became pretty much the audiovisual geek. So I still remember to this day when I went to the first grade at P.W. Moore Elementary School in Elizabeth City, and my first grade teacher was Mrs. S.E. Moten, and she was a strict disciplinarian. But
So
also,
would you say that's where your interest in radio
yes,
and
yes,
television began at that early
really
age?
from my father and my mother. Both were really just, my mother was very adventurous also. By the way, my mother's side of the family were the partiers, but her family, they had the big parties. They loved music. They loved dancing.
Love to
I,
party.
I had uncles who had nightclubs, and
Oh,
those,
wow.
uh,
So clearly you didn't go to the nightclubs. You graduated high school, and did you go on to college in that area, or
yes,
did you go
in
out of
fact,
state?
in fact, I'm at P.W. Moore High School, which is my high school. One of my great mentors was Mr. CDR Page. Also, the parallelization of this is still the Navy, because all of the young African-American sailors that were stationed at the U.S. Coast Guard Air Station, Elizabeth City, and Naval Air Facility, Wicksville, would come into the African-American neighborhoods. And my mother cooked food like she was cooking for the entire U.S. Navy.
I hear you tell that story a lot. That was really
She
great.
had food
You got
galore.
to meet a variety of people, I'm sure, and hear sweet
Yes.
stories like we do.
So,
So
when
you left high school and you went to college where? And did you major in journalism and
no, in
radio and
fact, when I was at P.W. Moore High School in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, I was the audiovisual geek. And also, Dad taught me how to handle 35 millimeter motion picture projection equipment. And Dad became the general manager of the theater, the Gaiety Theater. I was a projectionist. This is during high school.
Mhm.
Now, at high school, my principal, Mr. C.R. Page, was really, he just was a great mentor to me. Another great teacher, Mrs. Helen Saunders, always used to beat up on me about, say, Roosevelt, you should be in speech and radio, and I'm going to work on you on that particular area. And I realized that she was planting seeds for me.
For your
Well,
future.
anyhow, at the time I'm graduating from high school, which was P.W. Moore High School in Elizabeth City, I had, I graduated. In fact, in my high school yearbook, I don't know, the students elected me most likely to succeed.
And they were right because
And
you
I
succeeded. You
yes,
went on and you graduated high school. And
okay. Now
where
here's a
did you go to
graduation.
university?
Yes. Now here's a graduation from high school bit. There's a thing called high school senior day.
Uh-huh.
Where colleges basically have their high school senior days to try to recruit, students to come to their school. In my hometown of Elizabeth City, there is a great HBCU university that is still in existence today. It was created in the late 1800s, the Elizabeth City State University. And the Elizabeth City State University, at the time I was graduated from high school in 1960, a brand new president had surfaced at Elizabeth City State University, roughly 1958. His name was Dr. Walter Nathaniel Ridley. And Dr. Ridley was the first African-American to get a doctoral degree from a Southern university when things were still segregated in
Wow.
1953. And he had been a major professor at Virginia State University at Petersburg. He had gone to undergrad school at Howard University and got his master's degree and all. But guess what his field was and one of his areas of interest? Audiovisual education. So I'm at the high school senior day that day, all the students, we took the bus from P.W. Moore High School to Elizabeth City State. And I'm telling you, when I'm going on board that HBCU campus, for me, it was like, I thought it could have been Harvard or Yale.
Is that right? Why is that? Why did you feel that way?
It was just, to get on that college campus to see all of the older African-American brothers and sisters who were in school. They were dressed to the nines. I mean, they all had ties and suits on, you know, carrying the books around the library, all the different buildings and all. And then all of us as high school seniors, we met in the S.D. Williams Gymnasium, which was the auditorium. And that was also serving as a gymnasium, you know, for basketball and everything and physical education. But we were there, and this day, Dr. Ridley gets up, and he was absolutely inspirational, talking about the development of Elizabeth City State University. And this is what he said. He said, oh yes, and by the way, this university has just purchased all of the motion picture projection equipment from a theater in Newport News, Virginia that had closed down. And his family, by the way, owned a bank called the Crown Savings Bank in Newport News, Virginia, in the Norfolk area. And he said, what? Oh, my God, I was like enthralled.
You were in heaven because you saw opportunity, right?
Opportunity. So really what happened, Commander, that day, after, you know, we had tours of the campus and all, I kept saying to him, I said, my God, I have got to meet the president, you know, this Dr. Ridley. So when of course, you know, the college being in my hometown, we came over on the bus. So I told my teacher at that time, Mrs. Helen Saunders, I said, Mrs. Saunders, I'll get back home. I want to walk around the campus, see if I can meet Dr. Ridley, the president. They said, yes, Roosevelt, very good. You can take care of yourself. You need, just give me a call. So they got on the bus, went back to the school. And then I was walking around the campus. And I went to the student union building, and, you know, these students were like, you know, 2 or 3, 4 years older than I. Oh, they were having a ball studying. I was in heaven. So then I said, boy, I would love to meet the president of the university. I walked out of the student union building, which is called the Pirates Den at Elizabeth City State University that day. And I'm walking in the quad area of the campus, and guess who's walking down the walkway?
Dr. Ridley.
Walter N. Ridley, the president.
And you took this opportunity to make your move to make sure.
So, you know, by the way, I'll tell you one thing about me. I've always been very shy too. I was, you know, shy. And
you would never be able to tell.
Well, I kind of hid it well.
Yeah, I met you.
But I walked up to Dr. Ridley, Commander Denise McCallaCreary, and I said, Dr. Ridley, my name is Roosevelt Wright Jr. He said, he said, you're Roosevelt Wright Jr.? I said, yes, I really enjoyed your speech this morning about opportunities here at Elizabeth City State. And I heard that you had said you had just purchased all of the 35mm motion picture projection theater from a theater in Newport News. He said, yes, my family has a bank there, and the theater closed down, and I had set up the audio-visual program, he told me, at Virginia State University back in the 1940s. And I said, my God, my father manages the Gaiety Theater. He said, is your name Roosevelt? I said, my God, I heard of your father. Boy, this is nice meeting you. And he said, do you know? I said, yes, I'm a 35mm projectionist and audio visual and all. He said, young man, come with me. So I go to his office at Moore Hall, and this is the spring of 1960, Denise, and to the NNOA family. And I walk in his office, and he walks up to the secretary, who named Mrs. Alma Newby, who was a president's secretary at Elizabeth City State, and said, Mrs. Newby, give me the keys to the storage room we got up on the second floor of Moore Hall, the administration building. And they were, at that time, renovating the administration building, and they were renovating the auditorium. And also, guess what they were doing? They were really redesigning a projection booth for the college and for the new equipment that they had just gotten. So
you gave them your expertise, and
yeah, so we went up
after that, and
oh God, we went up to the room where all the stuff was stored, and I started going through everything. And he always called me. He always said, "Young man," he said, "Young man, I have got to come with me." So we went over where they were in the balcony of Moore Hall Auditorium, and the architects, the guys who were doing it, didn't know what a projection booth should look like. And so they were white contractors. And look, said, you know how to, I said, I could draw up some rough plans for how it should look. And Dr. Ridley said, can you? I said, yes. I said, well, you do that. And so I went and drew up the plans for how the motion picture projection room should be built and designed at Moore Hall Auditorium. Elizabeth
so how many years I assume you stayed and graduated with your major in audiovisual?
So I graduated from P.W. Moore High School. And this was like April, May of 19, I helped install all the projection equipment. The
And where
first
did you go from there? Where did you go
and
from there?
okay, I had 2 scholarships there at the time when
Okay.
Mr. Page, the principal, had all of the seniors, and he announced, he said, that Roosevelt Wright Jr. has been awarded 2 scholarships. He has a scholarship to Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, and Elizabeth City State University has also offered him a 4-year complete scholarship. And I said, I'm going to go home to Elizabeth City State University. I
So
was in the industrial.
you went to Elizabeth State University and you
Yes,
spent 4 years and
4
you
years.
graduated with a degree in,
Industrial arts technology.
and then where
Industrial
did you
arts.
go from there?
Okay,
After
now
the
what
scholarship?
happens also, I was in the first class of industrial arts technology majors at Elizabeth City State, class of 1964. Dr. Ridley, the first thing that he did was expand the curricular opportunities at Elizabeth City State University, majors in business and biology, mathematics, physical education, history, political science, and all industrial arts. And that increased the student enrollment also. All right, now, so, okay,
Graduate.
I'm at Elizabeth City State University. Graduation comes, I finish up in 1964. But there is a Navy story in this.
Okay, let's hear your Navy story. Is this the start of the adventure in the Navy or just?
Well, I love the Navy and the Coast Guard. All of the Navy sailors like Petty Officer Danny Reginald Echoes. He was our scoutmaster. He had come to Elizabeth City to the Naval Air Facility, Wicksville. He was in Helicopter Squadron 3, HS-3. And he was that new breed of African-American brothers that, basically weren't messmen and cooks. I mean, the Navy was finally opening up their ranks, and these brothers are going to these technical A schools. Another brother, I just started, I got to call his name out because a lot of the NNOA family, and you, of course, you know him also, Lieutenant Commander Milton Moore. Milt was a Coast Guard rep for the Coast Guard back in the 1980s before he died. But Milt Moore was a radarman, enlisted type, and he was the only air traffic, African-American air traffic controller, I think, in the whole U.S. Coast Guard at that time. And these brothers used to bring me out to the base and take me and show me what they were doing. I remember going up in the air traffic control tower at Elizabeth City Coast Guard.
Did you join the Coast Guard before you joined the Navy?
So at this time, this is my junior and senior year in college when all this was happening, going out to the base with all the brother sailors. And I was just crazy about the Navy or the Coast Guard. Now,
so in my senior
year, one day, I'm in the Industrial Arts Technology Laboratory. I think my course had mechanical drawing was going on. And Dr. John R. Mabin is his name. He was the professor who was in charge of career development. Good stuff that Captain Merrimack Adams always talking about, career development, a counselor, and he taught courses also in political science. But he was like the, you would say a vice chancellor today. He came over to the industrial arts lab that day. Let me clear my throat. And Dr. Mabin said, there is a naval officer here from Norfolk in my office. And he said that he had been ordered to come down to see, if he could find some, African-American naval officers. This was 1964 now.
Wow.
So Dr. Mabin came over and said, all of you industrial arts majors, you guys have taken all the technical. The first thing we talk about today is STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics kind of courses. And he said, please guys, could you come over and just at least meet this naval officer and, be a good representative of Elizabeth City State? So I said, yes. So I never forget, 3 or 4 of the guys are no longer with us. They were, in fact, Reuben Buggs. In fact, Captain Anthony Swain, Navy in the DC chapter of Elizabeth City State University alumni. I was at one of their meetings a number of months ago. I heard that Reuben had died, and we were very close. And then for Ed Bracey and some of my other colleagues who were industrial arts majors. Okay, we go over to Dr. Mabin's office. We walk in his office, Commander Denise McCallaCreary. There is this naval officer, of course he was a white officer, commander, with his dress blues on. He was sitting down And, you know, having grown up in the world of, you know, as an African-American young kid trying to make it in the South, I've seen that picture over and over. He was sitting like he looked like he did not want to be there at all. And he looked at us, we walked in, and he said that, I've been ordered by the Navy to come to your school to see if we could find some boys like you all who might could qualify to become naval officers. And Bugs and all the other guys kind of looked at each other. And on our way over, they were saying stuff like, man, the Navy, no. Man, there's no opportunity in the Navy. They only got brothers just doing servants and messmen and cooks and stuff in the Navy. I said, no, but things probably going to change, man. So we went over. And this is what, you know, this naval officer said to us. We walked in, he said, I've been ordered by the Navy to see if we can find some boys like you all who might could qualify to become naval officers. And first of all, you guys got 2 strikes against you already. That's what he told us like that. And he said, if you might want to try, you can come up to Norfolk and take the test and all. And then he got up and walked out.
And your reaction was?
My reaction was, man, the Navy. I always want, you know, I love the Navy and the Coast Guard. And so I said, my aunt, my father's sister, my Aunt Edna, Virginia Wright Few, was an Army captain in World War II. She was one of the first African-American females in the Army Nurse Corps in the beginning of World War II. She had finished, by the way, Elizabeth City State University. By the way, one of her classmates was Alex Haley, who wrote the book Roots. And his father was a faculty member at Elizabeth City State. My aunt was proud of her World War II military. And of course, I think she was a major when she got out of the Army. And of course, she finished the St. Philip's School of Nursing, which was a division of the Medical College of Virginia at Richmond. And of course, St. Philip's was the school for all the African-American nurses, segregated. You know, this is Virginia in the 1940s. So she gets her commission in the Army. So I knew she knew about the military. And I told her about this naval officer who had come to Elizabeth City State. I said, I'd love to go. I said, okay, I'll take you up. Okay, let's set up the appointment. And so one Saturday morning, this is during my senior year of college, go up to Norfolk, Virginia, and the St. Helena Annex, you know, which is right across the Elizabeth River for the Norfolk Naval Shipyard. It was a Saturday morning. We got there at 8 o'clock in the morning. It was kind of gray and cold that day. I'll never forget. And I walked in, and there was a young petty officer at the desk, and I introduced that I was here to, you know, to apply for the Navy ROC program. It was the old Navy ROC program, Reserve Officer Candidate Program. And I said, from Elizabeth City State. I said, okay. So they took me into a room. I sat there, one of those big classrooms all by myself. And my aunt, by the way, she stayed out in her car. My aunt always bought a brand new Pontiac every year. And she said, I'm okay. It's my aunt just got her pillow and went to sleep on her backseat of her car. Said, when you finish up, I'll be here in the car waiting for you. And so I go in and I sit there, and then a lieutenant came in and said that we got to give you a test here. And we have a clock. The test is timed. I think it was the OQT, Officer Qualification Test. I think there was a time about 45 minutes or whatever. And so he came in and gave me the test, you know, the bubble sheets, you know, the pencils and everything. And I sat there, and he said, okay, when I walk out the door, close the door, you start taking the test. And then when your time is up, we'll be able to take it from you. And they didn't say good morning, anything. I just sat there. So I took the test. I looked at it. I said, wow, I think I've got this. So I took the test. And then right at about 45, I heard the alarm ringing out in the hallway. And they came in and took the test from me. And then they walked away. And I sat there for probably about a half hour wondering what was, you know, going on. I just sat there in this big, lonely, drop classroom. And then they came back about a half hour and they said, we're not sure of the score you made on the test, so we'll give you another version. We'll give you another test. I said, okay. And not really not what was happening, so they gave me another version of the test. The next version I took was easier than the first version to me.
So I think in the end, though, the story goes, you didn't join the Navy, you joined the Army, isn't that right? So what was the circumstances?
Okay, to make the story short, they came back and said, oh my God, you passed the test. So I went through the medical situation and all, and I'm nearsighted. I wear glasses. I was seeing 20/70 without my glasses, and I need to see 20/50. And the treatment that I was getting, it was really strange, Commander. Well, I won't get into
that. As a result of that treatment, was that why you decided to join the
I
Army?
was there, and yeah, what happened, and then a young corpsman, I never forget that day, came to me, and I didn't realize what was happening. He said to me, and he was a white corpsman too, he said, look, your name Roosevelt? I said, look, don't you let these people treat you the way they treating you? And I didn't realize I was being treated poorly. And he said, look.
So you didn't join the Navy, you joined the Army.
He said, look, you can ask for a waiver on your exit interview. So I go to take the exit interview, and there was the same commander who had come down to Elizabeth City State University. You know what he told me? I walked in, he said, Mr. Wright, you don't qualify, you got bad eyes. And then I said, well, sir, can I apply for a waiver? Oh, he read me the riot act. I mean, he literally threw me out of the office that Saturday morning. So I went back out to the car. I was so disheartened. I mean, I was just almost in tears. And I got there, and my aunt was sleeping, and I knocked on the door, and she opened it up, and she had a big smile on her face. And you know what my aunt told me that day? She said, they didn't treat you right, did they? I said, what you mean? They didn't treat you nice, did they? And I said, I don't know. She said, look, don't worry about it. She said, I really purposely wanted you to come up to go through the testing and this process to get you ready for life, to see what you're faced with. So anyway, I go back to Elizabeth City State. I graduated on the 24th of May. And then I had made connections with North Carolina Central University at Durham. They had an excellent master's program, one of the first African-American colleges in the United States have a master's degree in media, educational media and audio-visual, along with Virginia State, Dr. Ridley's campus. And Dr. James Parker and Dr. Norm Johnson, I had met them while I was doing my student teaching a little bit earlier. And I didn't get into that part of the story. But I got a full graduate fellowship to North Carolina Central University at Durham. So I graduated on the 24th of May. June 7th, I'm doing my master's degree 2 weeks later. Okay.
And then from there?
Okay, I'm at North Carolina Central, which was a fantastic year doing my master's degree. By the way, I was working in radio broadcasting too. I was also working with I used to MC night shows at a nightclub called the Stallion Club. And that year I worked with all great groups like Otis Redding, James Brown, Joe Simon, Millie Jackson.
So you're working in an area that you were introduced to by your dad and have come to love, and
it was going great. So here comes, I'm finishing up I took summer school in 1965, and I'm trying to get my thesis done. My 2S classification, by the way, Vietnam is on the table right now, all right? The NAM is on the table.
We're going to hear briefly about Vietnam because
I didn't go to, but here comes the Army side, all right? Just get the beginnings of my military. All right, so I'm finishing up. October 15th is really the day in which if you have student deferments or whatever, it expires. So my student deferment, which ended on October 15th, expired. I came back home. I was doing I was doing substitute teaching, also working in radio broadcasting and all, trying to find my way and getting my thesis finished up. All of a sudden, roughly about the middle of October of 1965, I get a letter from the draft board, which was basically a questionnaire, which basically said, what are you doing there? Because technically, this is the first time I was no longer in school. I mean, not as a full-time student. So make this long story short, I got drafted in the United States Army.
Oh, so that's so how long did you stay in the Army?
Well, what happened, never forget the day I went to the MEP Center in Raleigh, North Carolina first, went through the whole process there. And, you know, when I went through the Navy officer physical, when I was trying to get into the ROC program and receive really not so nice treatment that day, the Army treatment in Raleigh, the MEP Center, the place was packed full of guys. I mean, I got on a bus in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, the courthouse, and then all the way going to Raleigh, North Carolina, we picking up more and more guys. And that day I was going through the whole, medical thing. And, you walk in a room, the audio chamber. Here's the audio test. You walk in a room and there's a young first lieutenant, Army or Navy, Army physician out of medical school. He does this. And I said, yes, sir. I said, did you hear that? I said, yes. Good. You checked off. You can hear. This kind of thing was happening. So then after going through the whole day, nobody really, I had a medical jacket. Your jacket it's got nothing's in it, but then by that time it was loaded with all kind of stuff where people had checked off. So here was the last part. I was sitting out in the atrium, all these guys sitting around. It's getting towards the afternoon. And I said, oh my God, nobody's really checked me out, but I got a whole file here said I qualified everything. So then I started Sergeant Major, E9. I walked into him and said, Sergeant Major, sir. Don't you dare call me sir. I work for a living. I'm a Sergeant Major. I said, Sergeant Major, my name is Roosevelt Wright Jr. I'm from Elizabeth City. I graduated from Elizabeth City State University, finished up my master's degree at North Carolina Central. It's not that I don't want to serve my country, sir, but I tried to get in the U.S. Navy. I tried to get in the Navy and into the officer program, but they said I was nearsighted, and that gave me a non-select. And nobody's checked me out here. He said, hold it, son. What's your name? I said, Wright. Have a seat. Say, everybody will see a doctor to see if you are physically fit for service in the United States military.
So did you get into the Army to serve and end up in Vietnam or not?
No, they go to NAM, but I ended up in the Army. Here's the story that day. All right. You go down this long passageway, and there are doors on the left, doors on the right. Doctors, Then we built up for Vietnam. A lot of the place was packed. This med center was loaded with candidates. So finally, I get to a door. They say, if you get to a door that's closed, knock on the door. So I got to this door, knocked on the door, and I heard somebody say, enter. So I go in. There is a first lieutenant Air Force doctor, like he just got out of medical school. He had medical jackets piled up on his desk. I mean, like everything. And he's steady writing. So he holds his hand out, and I give him my medical, file that I was carrying. And I said, Lieutenant, sir, Lieutenant. And he stops and he said, yes, son. I said, sir, I got my undergrad degree from Elizabeth City State, master's North Carolina Central, and I tried to get in the Navy when I was a senior in college at Elizabeth City State University with the Navy. And I got a non-select because they said I was nearsighted. Sir, nobody's even checked my eyes or anything out into my physical here at the military interest processing station. And he stopped, and he had a kind of a smile on his face, and he said, nobody's checked your eyes? He said, then he started saying, I won't give all the language on me, military. Son of a God. My God, we just pushing guys through. Right, I'm sorry, nobody's checked you. And he said, let's get that straight right now. Let's give you an eye exam. So he got up and went over to his file cabinet, looking for the eye chart that we use for checking your your eyesight. And he couldn't find it. Then he said, oh, right, I got somebody, I can't find my eye chart. He said, hold it, but I'm qualified to give you the secondary military eye test.
So did you take that test and they put you in the Army and
so what he said,
you left and you went?
Yes.
Tell us about leaving, because we're running out of time. Okay, we have a lot more to cover.
But
so
let's cover you. There's a piece of this you gotta hear though.
All right.
There, and he looks at me and he said, I'm qualified though to give you the secondary military eye test, but I need your permission. Do I have your permission? I said, yes, Lieutenant, you have my permission. He said, okay, go over and turn the light out. He turned the light out. And the military gooseneck desk lamp, we can twist the head. He twists the head, shine the light up on the wall, and said, okay, right, let's get this solved once and for all. Said 6 paces back from my desk. I go 6 paces back from his desk. He said, which eye did my dear colleagues in the United States Navy say was your bad eye? I said, sir, I'm 20, well, cover up your left eye. So I covered up my left eye like this. I'm standing there. And he said, okay, Wright, I have one question to ask you. I said, yes, Lieutenant. He said, okay, can you see this wall? I said, yes, Lieutenant, I can see it. Okay, everybody, that stamp that comes down on top? To this very day, this is what, the 23rd of January, 2021, this was like 1965, Raleigh, North Carolina. I can still hear that stamp today. And he took that military government ballpoint pen, said squill, and said, "Congratulations, Mr. Wright. You're qualified."
You're now in the Army.
So
So
I
you're
got
in the Army as an officer.
no,
And
no,
you,
no, 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 no,
no,
no, no, no,
not yet.
no, not yet. No, no, no.
Okay.
I'm a private E1. I go in the Army on the 19th of January, 1966. The country's building up for our excursion to Vietnam. Well, I go through the reception center. We get on the train from Raleigh, North Carolina, go down to Charleston, South Carolina, no, Columbia, South Carolina. Get off the train about 1 o'clock in the morning, Columbia, South Carolina, at the train station. There were, I mean, hundreds of guys all out there from
And where did you
Ohio.
get orders to?
Well, we were at the reception center, you know, for 4 or 5 days, get your uniforms, your haircut, all that good stuff. Now, Fort Jackson was overtaxed. They had too many guys there. So finally the guys came up to him and said, "Okay, we got to split you guys up. We're going to send half you guys to Fort Gordon, Georgia, and some of the others going to go to some other forts." And I was in the group that went to Fort Gordon, Georgia.
So is that where you went for boot camp?
That was boot camp. I was
Boot
Bravo.
camp, and how long was boot camp back then? How long was
Like in
boot
3
camp?
months. 3 months, yeah.
Okay, so you
January,
did 3
February.
months of boot camp, you graduated, and where was your first set
Okay.
of orders?
A colonel saved me. A colonel saved me.
Okay.
And I must say this, when I was going through basic, I became the most outstanding trainee in my basic training company. But guess what? They took it away from me. And they said I had entered the Army fraudulently. I said, how can I enter the Army fraudulently when I was drafted? And they got quiet in the room. The young second lieutenant who was a CO, he didn't like me. I knew it. It was that kind of thing I went through. You know this story. Well, anyhow, there was a supply corps sergeant at the in the basic training company there. He was from Texas. He was an African-American sergeant, and he wanted to go to college. He used to come to me every day and say, "Private Wright, tell me about college, man." So I'm from a small town in Texas. In fact, my hometown was what they call a sundown town, where if you caught African-American after sundown,
you're in trouble.
he said, "Man, I got out of that town, and the only thing I could get, I joined the Army." But he said, "Boy, I wish I could go to college." He said, "Tell me about college. College, what do you do? What about fraternity, sororities, the classes? I want to know about going to the games." And every day. So one day he came to me and said, "Wright, look, man, you're doing great here as your trainee, man." And said, "The CO doesn't like you, man, because you're black. You're doing great. You got a master's degree and all that stuff he wanted." Well, anyhow, he said, "Look, I put your name in for guard duty." I said, "Oh my," I said, no. I said, "Look, if you make, they're gonna have a guard mount that is 4 guys from each of the 4 platoons. And the sharpest guy on the guard mount will not have to pull guard duty, but you'll have the opportunity to meet the brigade commander and be his orderly. And so I know you can do this and that you'll be selected."
So
That's what happened.
You got the job, and then what
I
happened
got the
after
job.
that?
So I go over to the brigade commander at went across parade field. It was in March of 1966. I never forget the day because I tell you, I was all dressed in my, fatigues and everything. I had the poncho, it had rained all night, all that red clay Georgia mud's on the wall, on the floor. Just as I'm getting ready to go into brigade headquarters, Commander, a big 2.5 truck comes by and throws mud all over me. It was the only time in my life that I nearly came completely unglued. I mean, emotionally. And I said, "Oh God, please, somebody help me here." And that was the command sergeant major was on the porch and he yelled over me. He said, "Are you Private Wright from Bravo 15-1? I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Look, come over here." He said, "Look me in the face." I looked him in the face, said, "Look, son, this is the United States Army, the infantry. It doesn't rain in the Army, only own it. So that regulation poncho you got probably caught all that mud. Go over and clean yourself up. The colonel's waiting for you." So I went into the colonel's office. The colonel was practicing his golf swing, all right? And he looks at me and he says, "Hi, Wright." I said, "Private Wright, report, sir, for duty." He said, "Oh, right, we're not going to go out today. It rained last night, mud and everything, cold. And I just got orders to Vietnam." And he was practicing his golf swing. He said, "Son, have a seat." I said, "Son, how far did you get in school?" I said, "Sir, I have my baccalaureate degree in industrial arts technology from Elizabeth City State. I have a master's arts degree in educational media business from North Carolina Central University. And I, worked in electronics and all. That's my background." And he stopped his golf swing And then he went over to his desk and he lit up a cigar and sat down. And I was sitting there and I was kind of unconscious. What do I do? And I just said, no, Wright, let me just look at you, son, for a moment. And he looked at me and he said, son of a SOB, that's what he said. We have done it again. Here's a young man with a baccalaureate degree, a master's degree, probably got excellent scores, and we got him as a private E1 in the United States Army. And boom, he said, Wright, I got to do something, make sure you're okay. So he said, call his chief staff officer, and they gave me this long interview, blah, blah. We talked and everything. He gave me a pass to go and enjoy the base for the rest of the day. But when I graduated from basic training, I was among seven of us did not have any orders at all. And I said, oh God, the other half my guys in my unit went to Fort Polk, Louisiana for advanced infantry training. The other half of the group went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma for artillery. And there were 7 of us with no orders. And the other guys were in the other platoons. I was platoon guy for the 4th platoon. And so we were there talking among us. I was the only African-American among
them.
them.
So then what happened to you? What came next?
My orders came down about 4 or 5 days later.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked, and I said, the company clerk said, Wright, your orders have come in. I said, well, hey, do you have, said, no, the CO's got your orders. So I walked in and I said, Private Wright reports, sir, for my orders. Young second lieutenant, he looks at me and he said, Wright, who do you know? I said, sir, I don't know anybody. Nobody, sir. And I said, my God, y'all have been, I said, I don't know anybody. He said, yeah, you gotta know somebody. You got 2 sets of orders here. And he said, 1 set of orders are SEAL orders. And the other orders I checked out, you got orders to report to Signal OCS here at Fort Gordon. And your other set of orders is you got to report to Fort Bliss, Texas. And so he said, what you gonna do? I said, sir, I don't know. Sir, can I have my orders? And I got him and walked out. And then I got on the phone and called my aunt in Elizabeth City, my Aunt Edna, who was an Army officer. Mm-hmm. She said, and my nickname, by the way, was Sonny. That's the nickname my mother gave me. She said, Sonny, come on home. And I got on the bus, went home, and I got there. My aunt said, do you really want to be in the Army? He said, if you become, the OCS, second lieutenant, you're going straight to Vietnam. What about these other set of orders? The other orders to a highly advanced engineering electronics course, Fort Bliss, Texas, to be trained to know everything about the Hawk missile system.
So which one did you take and what happened next?
I took the orders to Fort Bliss.
We have lots of story more to cover.
I know. I took the orders to Fort Bliss, Texas. And
okay, so how long were you there? And
March, April, May, June, July, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. And being a draftee, only had a 2-year commitment. So I went to this electronics course. And by the way, when I got off the plane, I saw one of the greatest sights I've ever seen in my life because El Paso, Texas Western, the basketball team there, had just won the national championship, NCAA championship with all African-American players. And
so you basically went to that school.
I went to that school.
Your contract was up with the Army? And
no, after I went to that school, it was gorgeous. It was electronics, my undergrad.
So you stayed in the Army?
Yes, so anyhow, I finished up, by the way, I graduated #1 in the class. I didn't even know it until I got orders to Germany. So I leave El Paso, Texas. I go to the 32nd Double ADC Air Defense Command, Europe, and I was.
And how long were you there?
I was there until December of 1967. So basically, I was there.
You did your tour in Germany, and you came back to the United States. Yes. And what did you do? What orders did you get back here in the United States?
Okay, I get back. Okay, I've got an early out. In fact, I spent my time I made Spec 5 real quick, by the way. Also, I worked TDY duty with the Army Air Force Motion Picture television service at AFN in Frankfurt.
So we're kind of going back to your roots there a little bit.
So everything was working. I was having a ball.
You were stationed in Germany and then you came back to the States. And did you say you had an early out in the Army?
Yeah, okay. So I went in on the 19th of January, 1966, December 27th, 1967, I got an early out right after Christmas and flew back to the United States, and I was discharged at Fort Hamilton.
You're discharged from the Army, so military is behind you. So what was next for Captain Wright?
Okay, I come back home to Elizabeth City, North Carolina. I'm saying, oh my God, what am I gonna do? So I'm home for about maybe 2 weeks, and my mother wakes me up one morning and she says, Sonny. I said, yes, Mom, you got a telephone call. I said, who is it? She said, no, you got a telephone call. So I went and picked the phone up, and on the telephone was Dr. Walter N. Ridley, the president of the Elizabeth City State University. And he's saying to me, young man, what are you doing? I said, Dr. Ridley, he said, why haven't you come out to see me? I heard you were back. Because I had gone out to a couple of basketball games, you know, on campus and all. And he said, I said, well, Dr. Ridley, I really told him I really felt embarrassed because I had gotten drafted in the Army. And he said, embarrassed, you have went and served your country and we got you back here alive. And he said, you be in my office within the next hour and a half. Your mother is fixing you a beautiful breakfast, you just told me, and you come out and see me. So I had breakfast, went and got showered up, and you in those days we dress, put the suit and tie on. And I go out to Elizabeth City State University, go in the president's office, and Dr. Ridley looks at me and he says, Roosevelt, I have something I want you to do, and I want you to do it like right now. I said, what? I have a piece of paper on my desk that I want your signature on it like right now. You're going to be joining the faculty of Elizabeth City State University. And also I need you to get back to doing what you were doing as a student. We need your audiovisual center development and leadership support here. And so I was at Elizabeth City State. I was back home. College professor.
So you're back home at Elizabeth State, and I know at some point you ended up at Syracuse University where you spent a long time. So briefly summarize the period between there and when you get to Syracuse, because you spend a lot of time. We want to talk about the experience at Syracuse.
Okay, so I'm at Elizabeth City State University. I go in January of 1968, that horrible year when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. got killed, assassinated, brought tears to my eyes because Dr. King was one of my mentors. His sister-in-law, Coretta Scott King's sister, Dr. Edith Scott Bagley, was a faculty member at Elizabeth City State University and a member of my church, Mount Lebanon AME Zion Church. So I'm there during that horrible time, 1968. And then Dr. Ridley leaves the campus and a new president comes in by the name of Dr. Marion Thorpe, who's a good friend who I'd met when I was at North Carolina Central. So I spent basically 3 semesters. That was 1968 and in 68, 69 at Elizabeth City State. One day I got a phone call, here comes another phone call, from a Dr. M. Milford Codwell, who was a great mentor of mine. And when I was a freshman at Elizabeth City State, he had just finished up his Ph.D. at the Ohio State University. He came down as director of the Audio Visual Center. He also was an Air Force lieutenant colonel too. And he came down, he was an incredible role model. Well, I got a phone call, he says, Roosevelt, why are you back home? You can always go back home. So you gotta leave home. And he was the dean at Delaware State University, Dover, Delaware, and said, Roosevelt, I want you to come, I need a director of our Educational Media Radio TV Center here at Delaware State. I said, okay. So I go up and get the job at Delaware State University, faculty there. Also, on my way to Delaware State, I got another phone call from Virginia State University at Petersburg. Dr. Harry Johnson said they had a 1-year mid.
So how many universities called you, or you may have worked up before you finally got to Syracuse?
Okay, the Syracuse story is coming at you. All these pieces, right. I got to Syracuse. So while I'm taking the new position at Delaware State, I'm also a graduate student at Virginia State University at Petersburg in their mid-careers program in educational media. It was a 1-year program. The summer of 1969, we on campus taking all the coursework when we first landed on the moon that summer. All righty. Then we go, everybody in the institute though had to be a professional in a leadership role in the field of audio-visual communication, educational leadership, blah, 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 principles and all that kind of level. So I had to do a research study, and my research study was really the development of the audio-visual program at Delaware State University, a projection prospectus, where the program is gonna go. And Dr. Johnson, man, Roosevelt, you're taking over a brand new program. Here's a chance for you to sit down, write your program up. So I go to Delaware State and I get there in August of 1968, no, 69. Yeah, well, anyhow, I go to Delaware State, I'm at Virginia State. the year goes by, the spring of 1970, I'm at Delaware State. I get a phone call from Dr. Harry Johnson at Virginia State. Roosevelt, look, everybody has got to get a person, a consultant to visit you, an on-site visitation, and to sign off on your research study. I received a gift from God, probably the top person in the field of audiovisual education and instructional technology, Dr. Donald P. Ely, head of the whole program at Syracuse University, was my person who came down to Delaware State. I could not believe it. For 3 days, we were there. And after having spent a great year at Delaware State University, we were there in the Holiday Inn. This is the spring of 1970. And Dr. Ely looked at me and said, Roosevelt, I really hate to take you away from here, but you got to go back to school and get your doctoral degree in this field. You're the kind of people we're looking for. And I said, Dr. Ely, I don't have any money or anything. I'm on a wing and a prayer. I said, no, money's no problem. Said, I'm going to send you all the the introduction, all your application materials and everything now. So I got everything in the mail a few weeks later, filled out everything.
You applied and you got accepted.
And then I got the letter back from Syracuse, said, congratulations, Roosevelt, you're, we have been selected to be, full doctoral fellow in instructional technology at Syracuse University.
So you spent how many years at Syracuse?
Okay, so I go up to Syracuse, I get to Syracuse, September of August 1970. And I get on campus, full doctoral student. Also, by the way, I had another parallel career I haven't even talked, which is the world of radio. I worked a lot of radio stations. And also I was a radio broadcaster. I had my first class FCC radio engineering license. So I got to Syracuse, started working radio, full-time graduate student at Syracuse University, and then spent 2 years getting all my coursework, everything done, trying to get my dissertation finished up. Phone call comes up from North Carolina Central University, Durham, said, Roosevelt, you got to come back home. So North Carolina Central lost me a faculty position. I go back to North Carolina Central, still had my dissertation to get done. Had a great year at North Carolina Central. The weather was great, having fun. But I said, I got to get out of here. So after a year at North Carolina Central, and I worked, by the way, in radio stations at WDNC Durham, which was the flagship station of Duke University.
So is that, did you leave from there and go back to Syracuse and staff?
So I leave, not just yet. I spent the year at Raleigh-Durham Chapel.
We got a lot more to cover.
Okay, so. Well, I'm getting there. And then I leave North Carolina Central University in Durham, and I'm offered, in fact, really what happened, I got a phone call from a company in New Jersey who said they were buying radio stations, and I was named the vice president and general manager of a radio station in the capital of New Jersey, Trenton, New Jersey. Oh, it was one of the craziest moves I ever made in my life. But I made the move because I was thinking about getting back north because I still was trying to finish up my doctoral dissertation, all right? So I spent a year in Trenton, great time. Oh, it's fascinating time, but that's a book in itself. So
right, and we're running out of time.
And
so
then I leave
transition.
I leave Trenton one day to go up to New York City to the advertising, to close a couple of advertising contracts. And I said, while I'm there, let me go and I'm gonna go make a tour of NBC. And I go to NBC, 30 Rockefeller Plaza, and I meet the president of the NBC radio network. His name was Mr. Russell Tonneman. We were talking, and in the meantime, come to find out he was a Syracuse alum. He had gotten his master's from Syracuse. And he said, Roosevelt, have you ever thought of working for NBC? I said, I never did my wallet. So, well, look, I have positions available in Chicago, Washington, make a selection. And so I went and worked for NBC Radio. I go to Washington, D.C. While at Washington, I'm also on faculty at Howard University, the university of our new Vice President of the United States. Okay.
Okay.
So while I'm at Howard.
Was it at that point you came in contact with the Navy?
The phone rings, all right?
Right.
The phone rings from Syracuse. Syracuse at the time had just spent a whole lot of more money to expand the whole SI Newhouse School of Public Communications, the radio TV area. On the phone is my doctoral advisor, Dr. Larry Myers, my greatest mentor, Dr. Donald P. Ely, and the dean of the Newhouse School at that time, Dean Henry Hank Schulte. The phone conversation goes like this. Roosevelt, we have just expanded the Newhouse School. We have just added new faculty lines, and your name is #1 on the search committee's list for one of our new faculty positions. I said, and I said, oh my God, I didn't apply. I said, no, we applied for you. So when can you get up until we can close the deal? So I leave Washington, D.C., come back to Syracuse, and this is September of 1975-ish in my life. So I joined the faculty and the Newhouse School and started having fun.
And the rest is
Radio.
history.
But
So
now here's the Navy. I'll get to the Navy story. The Navy story.
Wait. Let's cover Syracuse really quick.
Okay.
You know, you were there for about 25 years, right?
38 years.
38 years.
Yes.
I can stand corrected. And we know you have a lot of famous students that graduated from your professorship at the school. So quickly, name a couple of the few famous students now that are on national television that we know you taught.
Well, some of the national people that people know right off the bat, like Bob Costas. I saw Bobby on the air a few minutes ago talking about the death of Henry Aaron. Mike Tirico, who is a major sportscaster, taught him. Sean McDonough taught him. Iron Eagle taught him. Another beautiful sister who was one of the first anchors at CNN, Jeannie Moose. I think Jeannie's probably getting ready to retire. She's been there since the network was developed. And oh God, Melissa Ann Twitzel became the great fashion model that People magazine says she was one of the
you have a lot of famous people that can credit.
Yeah, Vanessa Williams, the first African American.
We got to transition to the Navy. We got to.
Okay, here's the Navy story. Let me do it real quick. Okay, 1975, 1980 comes up. All right. Mm-hmm. My mother, Reuben's great-grandmother, no, his grandmother, it is, Miss Lily Mae Wright. Mom loved the Navy. I mean, she loved the Navy. She was dying of cancer in December of 1979. And Syracuse was playing McNeese State in football in the Independence Bowl, December of 1979. Mom was dying of cancer. I called Mom to talk to her on the phone like every day, every night. But this particular night, she was getting real weak, and my Aunt Edna was her nurse. And my aunt said, your mom wants to talk to you. So Mom was on the phone, and she was saying to me, I couldn't understand what she was saying. Then the vicar said, Mom, say that again. And what she was saying in her very weak, feeble voice, being body racked with cancer, breast cancer. And Mom said to me, your students, Syracuse, they're doing great. She was watching the Syracuse University McNeese football game that featured great players like Art Monk and Joe Morris and all. And then before we hung up, she said, I have something else to tell you. I said, yeah, Mom, what? She said, don't forget the Navy. Don't forget the Navy. I said, Mom, I love the Navy and all the sailors, but I've already did my military time. And then I said, okay, Mom, I hung the phone up. That was the last time I talked to my mother. She died a few weeks later, before Christmas of 1979. Let's fast forward to the summer.
I know, because you did not forget the Navy, because that was.
Okay, but here's what happened.
Yeah.
1980, the summer of 1980, which is about let's see, that was December, January, February, I think it was June or July. The Air Force Thunderbirds came with a big air show at Syracuse Hancock Field here in Syracuse. And that day I loved airplanes and aviation. That's a whole nother story of growing up in Elizabeth City and Norfolk and all, and seeing all the planes, you know, landing and taking off at.
Yeah, my first assignment was at an air station, because I too love the planes. I love
it was the air show. I parked my car that day, and that beautiful day in upstate New York, the Air Force Thunderbirds were going to fly because Hancock Field at Syracuse was open in those days. The Air Force had a big NORAD, unit here. And of course, the Air Guard has a big squadron here called the Boys from Syracuse. Well, there were at least about 60,000 people out there that day. And I'm walking down the flight line, and Commander Denise McCallaCreary, I'm walking down the flight line, and there are two Navy T-34 Bravos painted up in the red, white, and blue configuration. Mm-hmm. And there was a two big there was a Winnebago out there, like a command with United States Navy recruiting all over it. And there were two big 18-wheelers that had people going in to see the exhibit, I think, for surface Navy, and the other 18-wheeler was the exhibit for aviation. There were two Navy lieutenants, aviators. They were part of the OPO team, recruiting naval officers at that time, summer of 1980. So I saw these two Navy lieutenants. I said, oh my God, the Navy, where are these guys from? So I walked up and said, Lieutenants, where are you guys from? Willow Grove or Pensacola or Norfolk or, you know, South Weymouth Naval Air Station? I said, I've never seen the Navy here. So no, we're here we're right here in Syracuse. So you guys are here in Syracuse. So yeah, we're part of the Navy Recruiting Command. So you guys got these two T-30? Yeah, we have two T-34s we fly around and everything. So I grew up in the Navy and the Coast Guard. I started talking about the Navy and the Coast Guard and Norfolk and taking summer cruises with the Boy Scouts of the U.S. Taconic and Vulcan, you know, all these Navy and Coast Guard stories. Then they stopped me somewhere and they said, hey, hold it, guy. So what do you do? What is your name? I said, my name is Roosevelt Wright. And they said, what do you, I said, I'm a professor at Syracuse University. I'm a professor at radio, TV, and film in the Newhouse School of Public Communications. And I grew up, you know, really around the Navy and the Coast Guard. And then they looked at me and they said, hey, hold it. You got prior military service? I said, yeah, I was in the Army, missile engineering electronics with the United States Army. And I did, you know, 2 years active, like 4 years reserve, but I got my discharge in 1972 when I was finished up my doctoral coursework at SU. Say, hold it, you're a professor at Syracuse University? Yes. Said, do you have a resume? Said, by the way, first of all, how would you like to become a naval officer?
So we're going to take a break there and just remind everybody that we're talking to Captain Roosevelt Rick Wright, and this is NNOA. He serves on our national board as our historian. He's a professor formerly with Syracuse University Newhouse School of Journalism, and we're about to embark on the latter half of his life talking about his Navy experience before we close the show today. So Captain Wright, so I gather the story is going to lead to where you joined the Navy some way, shape, or form.
Yes.
Tell us, how did you get involved with the Navy and especially the National Naval Officers Association?
Well, we'll get to it. I'll make it quick. I know we take a lot of your time this afternoon on This is NNOA, having a ball, but I love telling this story. Well, anyhow, they said, how did you become a Navy? I said, hold it, guys. You two guys are Navy recruiters, right? I said, yes. Well, what is the whole story? When can you tell when a military recruiter is lying? When his lips are moving? And I said, you guys' lips are moving. They said, no, 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 no. I said, yeah, and by the way, guys, I'm past the age of 26. I think I was like 30, 31 years old at the time. And they said, no, 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 sir, please, we are really serious. So do you have a resume you could get to us? We'd love to see your resume. And I said, I got a resume out of my car. I can walk over and, get it now. And I had parked my car in the general, admission area. And it was a big deal. About 60,000 people out there, like a city, planes flying. The Air Force Thunderbirds will be flying about another hour. I said, no, 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 sir, please. So they got on one of those radios, and then a golf cart came up in about 5 minutes with two petty officers on with their summer whites on, and they had all these young ladies on the golf cart, sailors, all right. They
got your resume for you, or you went with them and got the resume? And
Lieutenant John Roberts and Lieutenant Kurt Yurdy were the two lieutenants. They were P3 pilots, by the way, on recruiting duty. So they said to the young petty officer, look, take Professor Wright over to his car and give him the VIP and bring him back to us. He's got something in his car called a resume that we want to see. So they took me on the golf cart over to my car in the parking lot. Then they gave me the rear view mirror VIP pass to put up on your rear view mirror in the car. And they said, okay, sir, just follow us. So I followed them, went through the security of the gate, went through, and then I ended up parking my car on the flight line where their cars were parked, right with all the planes on static display. And I got out of the car and gave them my resume. And they looked at my resume and they looked back and said, oh my God, we can't believe we found you. And they said, can we have your permission to, send your resume up the chain to our boss?
So is that when you became a campus liaison officer? And you did that for quite some time? And
yes.
Tell us about the different crews that you went on and all the awards you got, because we still have a lot more time, and we need to wrap up really soon.
In this case, real quick, to make it real quick, they said, Captain Steve Maganka was the commanding officer of the NRD Buffalo and became eventually the Area 1 recruiting commander. He became really my sea daddy. And he called me on the phone one day and said, Professor, I got your resume. I got to talk to you. So we have a very special program in the Navy, and you're the person we've been looking for. Thank God my 2 lieutenants found you. Can I come over and take you to dinner? So I think it was a Friday evening coming up, and I said they came over and knocked him at my door, my office at the Newhouse School at Syracuse University. I opened the door up, and there was Captain McCallaCreary standing there. The XO was standing there, who was a commander. His name was Mike Edwards. The education specialist, by the name of Mr. Frank Smith. He died. He was another great mentor. The 2 lieutenants were there. There were 2 master chiefs there. I think one was the chief recruiter and the
And
command
did they swear
master
you in on
chief.
the spot?
They were all day outside of my door. We go down, and they had about 3 or 4 G cars all set there. The guys had the doors open, jumped in the front, went on the back seat with Captain McCallaCreary, and we went over to a restaurant called Danzer's here in Syracuse on the north side. And we sat there, and then eventually Captain McCallaCreary said, Professor Wright, Dr. Wright, look, we have a program in the Navy that they have designed, that we designed years ago, to look for college professors, VIP type professors, and deans and presidents at the college who had prior military service and could get through our screening process that we could commission so that you could be our official representative on that campus and help us with recruiting or whatever we got from the inside. And I said, wow. So he had this big, about 50-page, instruction on the program he gave. So look, I want you to read.
So you got commissioned?
Yes, so then he says, please, you
and
got
to. Give us one story about probably the most exciting experience as the campus liaison officer, because I want to get to your involvement with NNOA.
Okay, well, anyhow, what happened, and here's the story with my mom. You remember my mother told me she was dying, don't forget the Navy. I've always, and I feel to this very day, that this was a gift from my mom from heaven, because I went down to the federal building, and the old IBM Cell Electric typewriters, the yeomen were there. 2 of them were sitting side by side. They gave me all the paperwork that I filled out in pencil, and then they typed up the whole packet. And after I got the packet, I started getting invitational travel orders to fly all around to see the Navy. The point I'm making is that my mother died December 1979. 1 year to pretty much the date my mother said, don't forget the Navy, I received a phone call from Captain McCallaCreary, who said, Professor, Dr. Wright, all of your everything has passed. Your commissioning documents are on the desk of the Secretary of the Navy awaiting his signature. And after that, we want to find a time, probably right at the beginning of the year, which was 1981, to get your commission. And so I was commissioned into the Navy as a lieutenant commander on the 7th of February, 1981. And guess who brought me into the Navy?
I have no clue.
Lieutenant Commander Dalton Baum, one of the Golden 13, one of the first African-American naval officers.
Wonderful. So you came in as a lieutenant commander. I would think that in those days, that was pretty good, because number one, finding African-American officers was pretty challenging. Number two, my recollection when I came in around 1978, you were seldom any senior officers. The highest rank was lieutenant commander, and you were retiring. So if they brought you in as a lieutenant commander, that was wonderful based on all your skill sets. So you came in as a lieutenant commander, and when did you find out about NNOA? How did you find out about NNOA?
This is February of 1981. I'm a brand new newly commissioned lieutenant commander, United States Navy, and I got to work immediately, flying all over the country, riding on ships, flying on planes, everything.
And you got quite a few awards.
Yeah, but here's the picture, though.
Didn't you get an award? Didn't you get an award that ended up in Jet magazine?
Yes, I picked up the award.
Tell us about that really quick.
Yeah, I picked up the award as the Navy's top naval liaison officer for the whole United States Navy, and went to Washington, spent 7 days. You know that Roy Week that they had, you've been in recruiting, and spent 7 days in Washington, wine and dine, Navy Commendation Medal out of that. But here's the NNOA story, and I'll back up before I get to that.
We're almost out of time.
Okay, let me make this real quick. Alrighty, it's roughly June of 1982. So I've been basically February 1981, and this is about 14 months in the Navy. I get a phone call from Commander Mike Edwards, who was the commanding officer of NRD Buffalo, who said, hey, Professor, Commander Wright. I said, yes, Skipper. I want to send you and Chuck down to a convention, the NNOA convention. I just got the message here, and we're going to cut orders for you and Chuck to go down, and y'all come over and give you advanced pay or whatever. Say, pick up a G car. We got some brand new ones. Y'all drive on down to the NNOA convention. I didn't know what NNOA. I said to Commander Edwards, I said, yes, Skipper, I'd love to. And I said, what's NNOA? So I picked up the phone, and Chuck was Lieutenant Chuck Parr, who was the only African-American officer with the OPO team at Naval Recruiting District, Buffalo. Chuck was a graduate of Prairie View State University, Texas, and the NROTC unit there. So I called Chuck. I said, Chuck, just got a phone call from the skipper, man. He said, hey, won't you guys go down to the NNOA convention? I said, what's NNOA? And Chuck started laughing on the phone. He was laughing at me. And I said, hey, man, you're going to love it. The National Naval Officers Association is really our organization where all the brothers and sisters of the Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard get together to really help each other out. And we're going to go down and have fun. So I surfaced at the 1982 NNOA convention. Norfolk.
So that was your first annual symposium, right?
1982.
For our viewing audience, the NNOA feature every year an annual training symposium as part of our objective of recruiting, training, and retaining a diverse service of officers in all three services. So keep telling your story.
So we drive down, stop over in Washington, D.C., see some dear friends. Showed up in Norfolk, Virginia early that morning. It was a Waterside Hotel, that big Waterside complex there in Norfolk, right on the Elizabeth River. And we checked into the hotel, and I'm telling you, I never forget, put the uniform on and came down for the opening session of the National Naval Officers Association. And Admiral Lawrence Chambers, who was the second African-American graduate Naval Academy, was the keynote speaker kicking things off. But I'm telling you, I walked in that morning in that big ballroom and saw all of these brother and sister Navy, Marine, and Coast Guard officers. And I'm telling you, I saw that sight and it was like, I said, wow. And again, my mother said, don't forget the Navy. So
well, we're glad you didn't forget the Navy. And as you said, you became affiliated with NNOA. And I know that, you saw many annual symposium after that. In fact, I believe I met you in the Washington, D.C. chapter.
Yes.
You became our public affairs officer.
Yes.
And helped to publish one of our first newsletters in the organization.
Yes.
I left you and went to the postgraduate school, and you went, as far as I remember, went back on staff at Syracuse University. Yes. And we separated in 1982. And I did not see you again until about 3-4 years ago. And I guess you were told I took over as the president and you volunteered to be the historian. And of course, I was elated because we needed an historian. And as our listening audience can hear, you're full of history. You've been around a very long time and you have been serving ever since then as our historian, in addition to starting this podcast. So we're kind of at the point, Captain Wright,
we can go to, I found a point we can close this down, but I gotta put the NNOA back into perspective.
Okay, put it into perspective, and then I have what I'm calling my rapid fire questions for you to wrap up.
Already. Now, here's the thing. I'm at the NNOA convention, and I'm walking around, and guess who taps me on the back? Lieutenant Commander Milt Moore, one of my great mentors. And at the time, he was a second-class radarman at Coast Guard Air, Elizabeth City, back in the late 1950s now. And he looked at me, and he took my name. He said, Roosevelt Wright. And he was a lieutenant commander, and I was a lieutenant commander. He's a seasoned Coast Guard officer. I said, yeah, I'm down from Syracuse. And he said, my God, man, you think that really worked out nice? I said, well, you helped train me. So anyhow, Lieutenant Commander Milt Moore introduced me to Judge Fontroy, who was the president of NNOA at that time. And I mean, I walked in there, I was a rookie walking into the doors of NNOA and all these, brilliant brother and sister Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard officers. But Judge Fontroy looked at me and he said, you at Syracuse University, Newhouse Schools, I heard you're a professor there. He said, Commander Wright, man, we could really use you with NNOA. I said, well, I'm brand new. I need it. Said, no, 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 we can bring you up to speed real quick. In fact, we need help quick in our public affairs area, which became really my designator and specialty in the Navy. And we need a news. I said, I can do that. You can? I said, yes. And so I basically ended up, the board met me and I ended up got elected to the board of directors as the public affairs officer. And I became editor of the Meridian, of course, our NNOA newsletter. So it was U.S. Coast Guard again. And by the way, the Coast Guard showed up again in Captain Warren Judd, President Obama's communications chief, and how he reconnected me to NNOA. So anyhow, but what happened in my case, I was on the board for like 5 years, like 1982, 83, 84, 85. And we used to meet in what was it, Captain Ed Benford? You remember he was, we used to meet.
We had quite a few presidents during that time, but I do remember you were very instrumental in getting our first newsletter out, the Meridian. And we publish it, and we're still publishing it now until now. We've gone pretty much digital.
Yeah, I'm doing all our history for the 50th anniversary. Here's a copy of a Meridian of the past. Here's another one here. And here's the kind that I designed that I had did back, boom, 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 in those.
Right, in fact, we were gonna feature that one. They show that last one again. We want to feature.
Well, you can always, not like reputation.
So anyway, we want to.
I know I'm probably jumping over you, but I want to get this point out. Is that how the Navy really found me was through the NNOA newsletter. I think I published like 3,000 or 4,000, and with your help and all the chapters, y'all got it all circulated around the whole Navy. I got a phone call here again at Syracuse in roughly 1985 from Chenfo. I think it was Admiral Garrow was Chenfo at the Pentagon. And he and his folk on the phone said, Commander Wright, we heard about you at Syracuse, and we've been seeing your newsletter and your publications. He said, you know about the Navy Great Lakes cruise, don't you? I said, yes, I've seen the ships that come up here in the summertime. We need help big time with someone to become our leader, public affairs officer, to ride the ship and really get us going with the Great Lakes cruise. And we want to bring you aboard. So I started active duty every summer as the public affairs officer of the Navy Great Lakes cruise, kicking off in 1985. So that was pretty much busy with that up until the 1996 era.
And I think you got promoted during that time.
Yes.
And that was pinned on by some very famous.
No, yeah, I got promoted to commander in 1986. And I was running the public affairs operation.
Wasn't there somebody very special that came to your promotion?
My mother was working again. Okay, I got sworn into the Navy by a Golden 13 member, Lieutenant Commander Dalton Baum. And in Chicago, Illinois, we had the USS Glover tied up at the Navy Pier. Mr. Bob Johnson, who was the editor of Jet Magazine, Morehouse grad, also a graduate of Syracuse University in the School of Journalism here. We were very close, and we set up a big party on board the USS Glover. We had the finest people in Chicago on a big reception. And I had been selected. I was commander select. And then the skipper of the ship said, Roosevelt, I got orders that we need to frock you in front of all these wonderful people here in Chicago. And that's when I got
promoted to commander.
Commander. And the person.
Then at what point, how long after that did you get promoted to captain?
But the point I want to make on the commander thing, on board the USS Glover, and there's a photograph, Ruben's got it, y'all probably already got it, of Lieutenant Commander Jesse Arbor, Golden 13, one of the first African-American naval officers, frocked me to commander along with Commander Doug McCullough.
And we do have that photo.
Okay.
So then so you got promoted to commander and then got promoted to captain.
Yes.
What we're celebrating now.
1992, 1993. So I got promoted to captain.
And then you rejoined the board 4 years ago, approximately, as our historian. And on behalf of the board, I want to say how much we appreciated you and appreciate all that you have done all these years, both in your personal life and both in the military life as a naval officer. So we're at the point now, Captain Wright, where we kind of have to wrap things up. And I want to do I'm stealing this from another colleague with a different show. I'm going to do what we call rapid fire questions.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you a few questions, and real quick, we just want you to give me maybe a one-liner answer.
Okay.
So your favorite book?
Favorite book, the Bible.
The Bible, the most famous student that you know on national TV to date, still today.
I got so many. And if I
Just
name
give me one that you have named
I
before.
tell you someone I'll holler again. Mike Tirico, NBC
Mike Tirico.
Sports.
Your favorite Jamaican food, because I heard you love Jamaican food.
Curry, chicken, curry, goat. What's that, plantain? That
okay, one food. What's you've served on many organizations, many boards. What's probably your most favorite organization that you have served on thus far?
Favorite organization is the National Naval Officers Association, and of course, the Omega Psi Phi fraternity.
I didn't think you'd leave that out. And the most favorite place you have traveled in the Navy?
Most favorite place I've traveled in the United States Navy has got to be all of my trips to the West Coast.
Okay, so everybody, we've been talking to Captain Roosevelt Wright. He's the host of this show. This is NNOA. And I know we've gone a long time, Captain Wright, but I cannot close out without asking you what advice, if you were asked by a junior officer, and junior officers are those that are lieutenants and below, having served in the military, started in the Army, ended up in the Navy, being a professor, famous, just with the spirit and the knowledge and the history that you have, what would you say to a young lieutenant if they came up and say, what's the number one advice you have for them, or school of thought? You want to close with that?
Key thing, put God first in all of your endeavors. Don't forget the incredible thing of teamwork and loving people. There's a purpose for everything. Don't forget perseverance. Don't forget to project the personality and thought of your abilities. And also, everybody's got liabilities, but you also have assets. Discover your assets and let those assets amplify and turn those liabilities into positive assets. And keep your eye on the prize. And just keep on keeping on, and everything will be all right.
All right, and with that, I want to say a thank you, number one, for letting me sit in your seat today and talk to you. It's been really a pleasure and an honor. I've known you since I was a lieutenant, and the same way I met you with that enthusiasm, that fabulous personality, is the same Captain Roosevelt Wright today. And I just cannot begin to thank you for all the mentorship you provided me. My first tour as a public affairs officer, when I met you, I was coming off that tour in DC, and you taught me a whole lot in the public relations field. And I've done a little bit of radio in my college years, but certainly any interest, you know, I always think about you and all the skill sets that you have tried to impart with all of us, especially me, because we do talk all the time. And I want to thank you for your leadership as a senior officer. So again, this is NNOA. I am Commander Denise McCallaCreary. We want to thank you for watching. Coming up in a week, he has a young aviator by the name of Lieutenant Gilchrist, I think, that we're going to have coming up next week.
He's coming for a couple of weeks, yes.
We thank you for tuning in. We thank you for watching. Please spread the word about the National Naval Officers Association. Membership is open to all officers in the United States Navy, United States Coast Guard, and the United States Marine Corps, and any other service member who want to join, or civilian. We welcome you as an affiliate member. We have our annual symposium coming up this July, and we're looking forward. You'll hear it over and over again as the shows go on. We will be celebrating 50 years in 2022 in Annapolis, Maryland, and we're inviting the world. So if you love what you hear here and you want to know more, you can visit our website at www.nnoa.org. You can write Captain Wright, tell him how much you love hearing him today. You have any other questions, you want to hear more, I'm sure he'd be glad to write back to you. You can get in touch with me. My email address is there. And we again want to thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Bravo Zulu to you, and thank you so much, Commander Denise McCallaCreary. Love you.
Thank you. Love you. Over and out.